Well, folks, President Trump has been off to a very, very busy start. A very busy start to his second administration, tackling many pressing issues. But we must face a real, certain reality for President Trump. Trump was elected by and far to lower prices, make life more affordable for the average person, and get inflation under control. And I believe that Trump knows what he needs to do. He knows what needs to be done. But he really needs to focus in on that. A recent poll that was very, very favorable for Trump and the Republican Party, some of the best numbers we've seen in 2 decades, at the same time showed that the economy, that he only has a 42% approval rating on the economy. We're going to dive into this today, dissect everything, figure out what needs to get done. But before we do, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, make sure you never miss another video again from us in the future. So, Trump has done a lot of good things in the first almost 2 months of his administration. From immigration, with putting troops on the border, securing the southern border, stopping fentanyl from coming over the border, deporting hundreds of illegal immigrants a day, thousands a week. You look at what he's done with Russia and Ukraine. He's brought Russia and Ukraine to the table to get a deal done. You look at the deregulation. They're trying to slash, for every new regulation that goes into force, they try and slash 10 regulations. Huge regulatory burdens that are being taken off the American people and businesses. You look at what he's done with trade on so many different fronts. And transgender issues. The culture war issues were a big part. A lot of people say that Trump's most effective ad during the 2024 campaign was his transgender ad that he ran that basically depicted that Trump is for you, Kamala Harris is for they, them. And it was very, very effective, they found. But Trump needs to remember that he was elected to fix the kitchen table issues, the prices, the cost of living, inflation. And Trump has done a lot so far, but I think he needs to focus in publicly on it. You look at prices. The cost of gas has come down almost 15%. The cost of eggs has come down almost 20%. The cost of living, you look at mortgage rates. Mortgage rates have come down in the last couple weeks. Inflation is down near historic lows at this point. But then you also want to talk about things that he's done to fix these issues. The big one is going to be the appropriations bill. Right now, the House, or about a week ago, the House passed an appropriations bill, or it was basically a bill that kicked off the appropriations process, where the House is going to vote, well, each subcommittee is going to work on their portions of the bill. They're going to sew it all together at the end. They're going to go back and forth between the House Republicans and Senate Republicans, try and get this bill crafted so you can get a majority in both chambers and get this bill passed. This is how Trump is going to enact his domestic spending agenda. You want to see tax cuts. You want to see money put aside for illegal immigration. You want to see unleashing energy independence. Really, the big one has to do lowering corporate taxes, keeping the Trump tax cuts in place and furthering them. This is where he's going to get his stuff done. But if he doesn't, this could be a huge scar on Trump's second administration. People love Trump because of the economy. Trump needs to remind them of what he's doing and make sure they get congressional Republicans, get their SHIT together, and get this bill through Congress. So by the time the 26 midterms come around, there is actual economic impact to the bills that have been passed under Trump. But there is something that is also another liability for the president that the Democrats have done a terrible job exploiting. Terrible. Instead, they're focused on this continuing resolution, and Elon Musk, and he's a dictator, and he's Orange Hitler, and all these different things. But there is one weak spot Trump has, and that comes down with trade and tariffs. Now, I'm going to kind of split this up. There are a lot of trade policies that Trump owns and espouses that I am very, very, very supportive of. But there are a couple things that are in the gray area where I'm not as supportive of. I just want to preface this by saying I support tariffs for certain things. When we're using tariffs to leverage another country to do something for us, to do something in the benefit of America, or to help the relationship between our two countries, I'm totally about that. Totally about that. You look at Mexico, illegal immigration. We want to stop illegal immigrants from coming into the country. You want to look at drug smuggling through Mexico. There's a very clear target. Border security. Mexico's deployed 10,000 troops to the southern border. You look at China, you look at competitiveness. China uses basically slaves and slave wages to be ultra competitive. We need to compete. We need to make sure American products are competitive on the world market. You want to talk about national security issues, products that are essential, industries that are essential for national security. You look at drug manufacturing that happens in China. They're shipping it to Mexico and shipping it into the United States. They need to do something about it, ripping off the intellectual property of American companies. But like we said, national security. You want to talk about steel, aluminum, lumber, pharmaceuticals, car manufacturing. You want chips. For national security purposes, we need to have domestic production of a lot of this. Because if we get into a global conflict with China, we're going to be screwed if they control 90% of the chips that are being made in the world. We need to have domestic industries for chip manufacturing. We need to have domestic industries for car manufacturing. We need to have domestic industries for critical materials like steel, like aluminum, like lumber. The pharmaceutical, the drugs, we need to have a domestic industry. Doesn't mean we need to be 100% reliant on our domestic industries. It just means we need to make sure that if there is a world conflict, we can take the brunt of that and then within a relatively short period of time be able to ramp up production to be able to meet the demand that we have. Obviously, if there is by basic economics, if there's a huge demand and then part of the supply is cut out, prices are going to go up. But if we can absorb some of that as a country, if we can make sure that we have part of that domesticated and we have the capabilities within, let's say, 24 months to ramp up production, that is huge. That is very critical for national security, and I 100% support that. But what I don't support about President Trump's trade and some of his trade issues that he has, when it all really has to revolve around Canada. And the wonderful new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who's refusing to come to the United States to meet with Trump to address these tariff situations, which just makes him look like a big PUSSY. Just what a loser. And we're going to kind of get into that too on how Trump may have hurt the Conservative Party in Canada. But you talk about the trade war with Canada. I am all about having a strong relationship with Canada. And the reality is that outside of energy imports from Canada, the U.S. actually is in a trade surplus with Canada. We buy tons of cheap crude oil from Canada that comes to the United States, gets refined, and then U.S. companies are able to make a very, very healthy profit off of it. So I don't see why the United States would want to target that when it comes to the crude oil. But when you exclude energy, the U.S. is in like a $60 billion surplus with Canada. So, we really have to understand what the true nature of the relationship with our trading partner is. Because here's the thing. Trump is going to slap these tariffs on Canada. And he says that they need to do more to deal with immigration and drug smuggling. Well, here's the reality. Less than 10% of all border encounters happen at our northern border, number one. 90% at our southern border. Number two, Trump talks about fentanyl. In fiscal year 2024, there were roughly 21,000 and some change ounces of fentanyl that were intercepted at our borders, northern and southern. Out of that 21,000, it was like 21,100 ounces or pounds, I can't remember, but that we were able to intercept at our borders. Of that 21,100, 43 of those pounds were intercepted at the Canadian border. So less than 0.002% of all fentanyl that comes into the United States, just by that logic, comes from Canada. So what really is the target with Canada? And Trump wants to make jokes about the 51st state. It was funny. I was all about it. Haha. It was real funny at first. We were trolling on the Canadian libs because they're kind of weird. But the reality is that when Trump was initially elected, the Conservative Party in Canada was up 20 points in the polls. Now, today, the Conservative Party is tied with the Liberal Party in Canada in polls right now. There's been a 20-point change since Election Day in Canadian politics, which it is fair to say that if we had a Prime Minister in Pierre Poilievre, he would be much, much more favorable to the United States than, per se, Mark Carney or Justin Trudeau, these liberal prime ministers. Which shows that this rhetoric could have some real-world impact where we're not going to have the best leader representing Canada that we can then negotiate with. And this is what could tank Trump's administration. I'm all about tariffs when there's a specific goal in mind. Mexico, you need to stop people from getting to our southern border. You need to stop the drug smuggling that's coming here. And you need to secure the border with us. It's as simple as that. If you do this, there's no tariffs. If you don't do this, there's tariffs. With Canada, it's the same thing. But how can the same rules apply when it's on such a smaller scale? And for that matter, in January, the amount of fentanyl seized at the border dropped like 90% from December with Canada. So but Trump is still trying to put tariffs on them. This could truly tank the Trump administration. If we see a prolonged trade war where there is not a specific goal at the end where this is what we're going to get out of it. Trump threatened the tariffs. The Canadian people put 10,000 troops on the northern border with the United States. Take the frickin' win. Take the win and run with it. You've got a lot out of Canada. They're investing $1.2 billion in border security. Do not let this tank the economy. Do not let this hurt your administration. And if you want to talk about the market believes that Trump wants to use tariffs as an economic tool. The Dow is down, and I guess we could even look at the S&P to see where it's at. Let's see, S&P 500. Over the last 6 months, it topped out at about 6,144, dropped down almost 1,000 points. Maybe a little less. More like, what would that be? Like 700 points. Like almost 10%. This is not going to happen if the markets believe that Trump is just using tariffs as leverage against other countries. There's obviously a disconnect between what the Trump administration believes they're doing and how the markets are reacting to it. Business leaders, the markets, they want stability. They want to know what their tax rate's going to be in 2 or 3 years from now. So then they can plan around that. They want to know the regulations that are going to be in place in 2 or 3 years from now. So they can plan for that. Markets like predictability. As a small business owner myself, I 100%, when there was some big disruptions in the industry I'm in that were supposed to go into effect about a week after President Trump was elected, Trump came in and slashed some of these new regulations that were going to go in that would almost double marketing cost in the industry that I'm in. It would be insane and horrible for the industry. Trump came in, canceled it immediately. But the thing is we need predictable markets. We need predictable policy from the federal government and what's going to happen. But the reality is Trump has also brought a lot of business here. I think they've counted, trillions of dollars in investments that are going to happen over the next 4 years that Trump has been able to secure. Whether it's manufacturing, chip plants, whatever it is. Trump has been able to do that. But he needs to do a better job explaining that this is not, in some of his rhetoric, he probably needs to tone down. Because we do not want the market to think that he's doing this just to use it as an economic tool, not as leverage. He believes it's economic policy, that tariffs are good. Tariffs are good in certain parts of the economy for national security or to get what you want. But then but if you don't clearly define what you want, there's no, the market has no way to justify, okay, when this happens, the tariffs go away. I like what he does with reciprocal tariffs, though. You have a tariff on us, or you have some sort of economic tool that you're using to hurt American products. Okay, we're going to respond in kind with the whole premise of lowering your tariffs and our tariffs. If you lower your tariffs, we'll lower our tariffs. If you lower your gun, we'll lower your gun. Or if you lower your gun, we'll lower our gun. Trump needs to make sure that the market understands what his plan is. And like we said, the Canadian trade deficit is only in oil. Everywhere else, we have a trade surplus. in the area where we have a trade deficit, there are United States manufacturers and oil refining businesses that make a heavenly profit, a huge profit from this. They get cheap crude oil from Canada that they're able to refine, and then they're able to make a very handsome profit from it. Why would we want to mess with that? Why would we want to cut that off? Obviously, we don't want to fully be reliant on every other country, but ultimately, Canada is not our adversary. They're an ally. If we're not looking to go to war with Canada, we want to protect ourselves from China, in India, and Russia, in Taiwan. We're not worried about Canada. Obviously, we want Canada to buy more products from us. Absolutely. Do everything you can to get Canada to buy more products from us. Or for us to buy products from Canada that we can then make a very good profit off of. So I don't see what the long-term game is. Trump needs to explain more. What is his plan with Canada? Because just general ideas are not going to get you there. We need specifics. If you do this, there's no tariff. If you don't do this, there's a tariff. Because like I said, this could be the nail in the coffin. And not that he's on his last limb right now or anything like that, but this could very much hurt the Trump administration if Americans feel that what he is doing is not in the best interest of the average American. But let's take a listen. This lady on Bill Maher had a great, like, I'm about tariffs in certain areas. And she explains it perfectly. She doesn't go into what they have to say about Canada, but just take a listen to her.
The reason people want to go back to the 70s is in the 70s, the largest share of our GDP was in the middle class. And that was not separate from the fact that 25% of our economy was in manufacturing.
Right, the largest share of our GDP.
Was in the middle class, the biggest chunk. The middle class, people who were middle income.
Most of what was produced came from the middle. And now it comes from what? The rich.
Now, the top 20% controls over 50% of the GDP. Our economy was an upward funnel of wealth, and the largest share, which used to be in manufacturing, which gave a lot of working class people a middle class standard of living, now the largest share is in real estate and finance, meaning that asset-rich Americans are controlling over 50% of the GDP, and they have left the working class out of all of that prosperity that was generated. That manufacturing is still being done. It's just being done in other countries. It is still
for wages we will not work for.
That's exactly right. You're right, Bill. That's what the tariffs are for. They are to make American workers.
He walked right into that one. Let's just be honest. And like I was talking about earlier, when it comes to issues of competitiveness like that, I'm all about tariffs. We have tariffs. Trump put tariffs on China. Biden doubled down on those tariffs. Like, this is a bipartisan issue when it comes to China. We do not want to be reliant on China. That is the most bipartisan issue that you can think of. We do not want to be reliant on China. China relies on slave workers to do this. This should not be a race to the bottom. Let's keep listening.
More competitive in the global market. Why are we accepting that there should be a race to the bottom? You know, China, what is its competitive advantage over us? It's that it pays slave wages. Why should we accept that? They're still manufacturing our PPE, our pharmaceuticals, our cars. They're making all that stuff. Trump says there are 5 industries that we cannot have any kind of national security without having a stake in them. Pharmaceuticals, lumber, steel, aluminum, and I forget what the 5th one was. But these are really important that we have a stake in the manufacturing of the things that we need as a nation so that when China decides that it wants to go to war against us, we're not relying on them for steel and aluminum in order to fight them.
Okay, well, at least that's an answer.
At least that's an answer. Hell yes, that's one hell of an answer right there. She makes perfect sense. From Chinese companies ripping off intellectual property, drug manufacturing, competitiveness, all of it. All of it. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Do you think that this is something that could hurt Trump's campaign if he does not refocus on the economy and really considers what's going on with Canada? Like I said, we support the tariffs, reciprocal tariffs. We support tariffs for national security. Beyond that, we want free trade. It really is as simple as that. So that's going to wrap things up for today, folks. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Smash that subscribe button so you never miss another video from us in the future. You guys have a good night.